Basics with Babish and the all-new basicswithbabish.com are brought to you by Squarespace. Head there now to check out recipes from the show, kitchen equipment lists, my personal blog posts, and more. Get 10% off your first Squarespace order with offer code BABISH. Whether you need a domain, website, or online store, make your next move with Squarespace. Hey guys, so today we're taking a crack at filled pastas, which of course means that we need to make some pasta dough. Now we've done this many times on this show, so I'm just going to do this grandma style. That is, dump about a pound of flour onto a woodwork surface, make a well in the center, crack 4 large eggs into the well, whisk it with a fork, use a bench scraper to sort of fold it all together once it inevitably comes apart, and continue gently coaxing into itself until a cohesive ball of dough forms. Then we need to do a little networking, that is, gluten networking, which we're going to do for at least 10 minutes until we get a smooth, supple, tacky, not sticky ball of dough. And you can tell when you're done kneading if you press your finger into the dough and it springs back slowly but eagerly. We're then going to wrap this guy up tightly in plastic wrap and let him rest for at least 30 minutes at room temperature. Just enough time to get our fillings ready. We're going to start with some tortellini, which I'm going to stuff simply with some cheeses and herbs. I'm going to start with some mozzarella, which you can see that I have lightly frozen, and this is just going to make it a whole lot easier to finely grate on a box grater. Sort of. Kind of. Not really. Anyway, once we've got about 1/3 of a pound of that grated up, we're going to combine it in a bowl with equal parts ricotta and grated Parmesan cheese. I'm also going to add a couple tablespoons of finely chopped basil, along with a nice sprinkle of kosher salt, a few twists of pepper, and my favorite not-so-secret Italian ingredient, freshly grated nutmeg. Stir until well combined and homogeneous, cover, and refrigerate until we're ready to use it. Because for now, we gotta roll out our pasta. I'm going to use this crazy expensive KitchenAid attachment, but you can do this with a manual pasta roller or even by hand with a rolling pin, like in the good old days. You know, before things were super easy. The objective here is the same as with making virtually any other kind of pasta. We want long, thin sheets that we're going to start by laminating, that is, rolling once, folding over into thirds, rolling again, and repeating as necessary until your dough is super smooth and doesn't have any craggly edges. Then once we've got it rolled out nice and thin, I put mine through the second thinnest setting on my pasta roller. It's time to start cutting small rounds and filling them into that signature tortellini shape, which is easier than you might think. This is my first time making them and they came out pretty awesome, so here's how you do it. First, you might want to pre-cut all of your pasta into rounds, topping each with about a teaspoon of filling, getting a little assembly line going here, and then using our finger wetted in a bowl of water, we're going to moisten just the bottom outside edge of each of the pasta rounds, and then fold it over onto itself, pinching it shut securely, turning it around, and bringing the 2 corners together to meet in the middle, and pinching them together, and what do you know? You got some tortellini. Wow, see? That was easy. Now, full disclosure, this is my second batch. First batch did not look so pretty, so just keep at it. Like all things worth doing, it just takes a little practice. Now we just gotta take these guys over to some boiling water, leave no man behind. And like most fresh pastas, these are gonna cook pretty quickly, like 3 to 5 minutes tops. And you could sauce these however you like, but I prefer tortellini and brodo. That is simply boiled, put in a bowl, and then topped with some rich, homemade beef, chicken, or veal broth. Just enough to almost cover the little guys, and then a ton of grated Parmesan cheese over top. Like many great Italian dishes, this one might look simple, but it is going to blow your mind. And you can have it anytime you want because these tortellini freeze beautifully. All you gotta do is throw them in the freezer on a baking sheet, and then once frozen, put them in a zip-top bag and boil them whenever the mood for Italian food strikes. And you can do the same thing with butternut squash ravioli, which is going to take aim at the sweeter end of the spectrum. Starting with some simply roasted butternut squash, we're just going to halve and core a large butternut squash, drizzle with olive oil, and place cut side down on a parchment-lined baking sheet, roasting at 375 degrees Fahrenheit for 45 minutes to an hour until deeply browned and soft, and a paring knife is able to pierce any part of the squash without resistance or objection. Pat yourself on the back for totally nailing that squash. And now it's time to turn it into ravioli filling. We're going to scoop all the flesh out of the skin into the bowl of a food processor. You can wait until it cools down if you want, because this is pretty unpleasant to do while it's this hot. And then I'm going to add about 4 ounces of grated Parmesan cheese, along with the requisite twist of pepper, pinch of salt, and a good glug of high-quality extra virgin olive oil. Go ahead and process this until very smooth and then set aside to cool. And then it's very much the same procedure as before up until we get to the thin sheet of pasta, which we're not going to cut yet. Instead, we're going to place small dollops of our filling about an inch apart along the bottom half of the pasta. Then we're going to wet the area around each dollop of filling with our wetted finger, and then we're folding the top half of the pasta over the bottom half of the pasta and trying to coax out any trapped air. We're going to press around each piece of filling until we have the semblances of ravioli. Once securely sealed, you can just cut these with a pizza cutter, but I'm going to use a decorative ravioli cutter. And there you have it, easy homemade ravioli, the fillings of which are entirely up to you. Now, butternut squash goes particularly well with brown butter. So I've got a solid stick and a half of butter here that I'm going to melt down and brown gently in a large stainless steel pan, adding a few leaves of fresh sage towards the end of browning, retrieving them once crisp. Set those aside and remove your butter from the heat once it just starts to turn brown. Then we're boiling our fresh ravioli for no more than 3 to 5 minutes, and then dumping directly into the hot butter. Don't attempt to flip this unless you really know what you're doing, which I do not, but the principle here is very similar to pasta allo olio. We're letting the butter and the pasta water come together to form a cohesive sauce. Now to plate up, we're just going to squeeze a little bit of fresh lemon over top, grate some fresh parmesan, and drizzle with balsamic cream or balsamic reduction. And of course, you want to scatter your fried sage leaves over top, which I didn't realize that I had forgotten until just now in the editing room. But even without them, this is absolutely delicious and a great way to step up your pasta game. I hope you guys give it a try for yourselves. Until then, I will see you next week when you'll be able to cook this right along with me during the live stream. So I just want to talk a little bit about designing my new website with Squarespace. They have this really intuitive, easy to use platform that made it super easy even for somebody like me who's never done web design ever. They have templates, they do domains, they have really good customer service. It's really an all-in-one, one-stop shop for building a really slick website, and I was really happy with the way mine came out. If you want to try it for yourself, you can start your free trial today at squarespace.com and enter offer code BABISH to get 10% off your first purchase.